But I remember meeting Madhubala. Yeah, as a little child. I remember her holding my hand and getting photographed with Dev Anand Madhu. I don't know where that picture is now. Dev uncle, I thought Dev uncle. Because he was saying, आजा, star बनाते हैं ना, चल तेरी कोई बात नहीं, तू आजा.
You're also a Nepo kid, technically.
Of course. Of course I'm a Nepo kid that never got anywhere with my Nepoism. In Sushant, I never saw any mental illness at all. He was obsessive about doing everything well. Rebellion was against the moral things that were put on me. My first rebellion was sexual. And I told him, I said, you know what, Mick? You're part of my rebellion. You know why? He said, why? He said, I was there when you first sang I Can Get No Satisfaction in Hyde Park and it was a free concert. This very idea that there is a different world and I can be part of the change. Chetan called me and said, how dare you make that film? I said, film aesthetic hoti hai. Khoobsurat hoti hai. Jeet kya banaya tune? I mean, I got told off by my uncle to make because I made Bandit Queen. I came out sobbing and everybody said, oh my God, look, he's been affected by his own film so much. You know, but the truth was I said, I'm sobbing because I'll never be able to make a film like this again. Remember that very clearly. I'm narrating my first story ever to my first potential financer ever for my first film ever. And the guy's sitting there going, oh shit. There was this huge poster on Botswas Pedal Road. Biggest lassu in town, Shekhar Kapur. Kate Blanchett. And I had to fight to get her into the film. I don't need a star. AI will create a star for me. I sat on a rock, little piece, and I said, I'm going to die. And you know what suddenly occurred to me? I still remember that thought. I'm sitting there and said, my poor mother, she'll go to Delhi Gymkhana Club. And everybody said, अच्छा वाला वो जो चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंसी करन भेजा सी एक किसी कुड़ी दे पीछे हिमालय पहुंच गया और ते फ्रोजन टू डेथ हो गया.
He can talk about AI and he can talk about spirituality. He has made films on The Invisible Man. He's made films on the Queen of England. He's made films on a man, woman, and a child. I am in conversation with one of the most talented and a part of my wonder years, director Shekhar Kapur. Thank you, sir, for being so wonderful as always, and it's a privilege to speak to you.
I'm actually looking for the person you're talking about. Where is that person?
It's you right in front of me,
Okay.
So, my first question always is my most favorite. What would you tell a younger Shekhar today, a 20-year-old Shekhar today, when you look back? What would you tell your younger self?
Take more risks than I have. Stay in a state of wonder always. Do not try and figure out what's going to happen tomorrow. Just go with today. Go with today. Go with the adventure of what is present here. I've done that most of my life, but not enough. So I would tell my younger, don't be afraid of that, because we're taught to be afraid of it. Our whole education system, the way we brought up is,
Fear.
Yeah.
Is based on fear.
I was a chartered accountant. Why was I a chartered accountant? I would tell my young self, do not even go there. Don't waste your time. Don't go there. Why was I a chartered accountant? Bada hoga, नौकरी करेगा, retire होगा, Delhi Gymkhana Club में bridge खेलेगा. Like, horrific, I mean, is that life? Like, the very idea, I was told that. Delhi Gymkhana Club में bridge खेलेगा तो I was so frightened by that very idea that I rebelled. And sometimes I think, thank God for the fact that my parents had me to become a chartered accountant in England, because the very fact that I hated doing it is why I rebelled and said, let me go out into the world, get this over with, and see what else there is.
But was that a done thing in the 60s to send your child to UK?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah. You were a computer man, you were a doctor, lawyer, computer expert, or a chartered accountant. What else was there to do? It was a glamorous things to do. For me, it was a way out of India. That's the one way I could get out. I said, okay, I'll be a chartered accountant. I'll go to London and I'll do chartered.
Why you found India constricting?
But there was no internet. There was one newspaper, Times of India, And there was no STD, there was no phone connection, there was nothing. And you were kind of in a place where all that you wanted to do, all the adventure that you wanted, was happening somewhere else. You were young. You wanted to experience what was happening in the rest of the world. And at that time, I remember that if you wanted to travel abroad, you had to go to the Reserve Bank of India, and you were not allowed to go overseas more than once every 2 years. There was a restriction, and then they would give you $20 to go. You know, there was something called a P form. I remember that. It was the most scary. If you say P form today, I will have nightmares. Because that's how restricted it was at that time. You did not have access to the rest of the world. And then people say, "Abhi, Hindustan mein kafi pada na." But at that time, when you're like 15, 16, 17, 18, you want to know what the rest
So
of
you
the
left
world
at
is like.
18.
I left at 18.
You know, I read a long back where you said ki you, though your father was the most gentle person and never told you, you always rebelled. What is this wild side you talk about? And while you looked for his approval, you always rebelled. What was that? Can you give me an example? Or what was the kind of rebellion?
I'll be revealing too much about myself. Right? Yeah.
Tell me something.
Rebellion was against the moral things that were put on me. My first rebellion was sexual. You go there as a middle class, go into London. And that was the time I remember I met Mick Jagger one day, just by chance. And I told him, I said, "You know what, Mick? You're part of my rebellion." You know why? He said, "Why?" He said, I was there when you first sang I Can Get No Satisfaction in Hyde Park, and it was a free concert. This very idea that there is a different world and I can be part of the change. I was in London in the 70s when all of this was happening. And you wanted to be part of that change. And that change was a rebellious idea. But change against what? When you want change, you have to change against something. Right? I rebelled against my own imposed sense of morality. Let me go do everything that might not be moral. Right? And my hormones were helping me.
So you're busy getting laid all over
All
London.
the time. So that was the first rebellion. The next rebellion was being told that you have to be, you have to lead a life of what do you want to do with your life, Shekhar, was the answer. You've got to know what you want to do with your life. I rebelled against that idea. The very idea that I must know what to do with my life and therefore I have to, of course, get a job, of course, pension, of course, all of that, I rebelled against that idea. So I realized at that time that there was one word that I had to throw out of my vocabulary, which I was told, everybody's told, every Indian is, you know what that word was? Career. The idea that I had to have a career is what I rebelled against. So a lot of people say that I left being a chartered accountant to join the movie business. No. I left chartered accountancy to leave chartered accountancy. That was a rebellion. To throw out this idea of having a career was a rebellion. I just threw myself into the unknown, not knowing what I was going to do.
So while you were a chartered, were you doing other things simultaneously?
I got interested in film while I was a chartered accountant because I used to go to something called the Institute of Contemporary Arts in London, and they showed not big Bond films we used to go and see, but I went and they used to show Iranian films and European films. And I think that my love for cinema developed out of those films. The idea, because they were great stories to tell. But I've always been fascinated by storytelling. Always. Always. My mom used to say, in Punjabi, if I didn't come home on time, I went out. She knew I was lying. I knew I was lying. I knew she knew I was lying. But it was an interesting exchange between mother and son that I would conjure up these stories.
Were you a problem child for your mother?
Being the only son, yeah, I was a problem child because I walked away from being a chartered accountant. Can I tell you a story?
Yeah, sure.
How much I care. This is back in India. I can't take names.
No.
Right? We were going to do a film up in the Himalayas. My first film as an actor was with my uncle Dev Anand.
Yeah, Ishk Ishk Ishk.
And we walked. Kabir Bedi became the big leader. There were 12 girls. We walked. And on the way, I fell in love. Right? And the girls, many of the girls, they went by plane to a place called Namchi Bazar, to Lukla, from where there was a hotel where you could see Everest and everything. It was big
In
Japanese
Nepal.
in Nepal. It was evening night when we got to Namchi Bazar, and Lukla was like another day trek. I wanted to go and see this girl that night. And I said, I'm going. And they said, are you mad? These are the mountains, the Himalayas, it's cold, it's height, you चुपचाप मैं निकल गया रात को और कुछ नहीं कुछ वो not enough clothes and then it got dark and then of course I got lost, just got lost, and I was walking around. It started to freeze. Now you have a parka or something. If I put it on I would sweat. Then it would sweat, the sweat would freeze. And I couldn't see anything. I didn't know where there was nothing. I couldn't know. I don't know where I was. Didn't know. And I said, "Oh my God, I'm going to die." That wasn't so scary, I sat on a rock, little piece, and I said, "I'm going to die." And you know what suddenly occurred to me? Huh?
Mm.
What occurred to me was this, and I still remember that thought. I'm sitting there and said, "My poor mother. She'll go to Delhi Gymkhana Club and everybody say, अच्छा वाला वो जो चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंसी करन भेजा सी एक किसी कुड़ी दे पीछे हिमालय पहुंच गया और ते frozen to death हो गया." And I suddenly said, is that what my mother is going to face? कि वो जाके frozen to death हो गया जी कुड़ी के पीछे दस गया. That was me. But I didn't want my mom to face that. And I said, I can't let that. I got to get up. I can't die. My poor mom. Then suddenly the moon came out. And if you know the area, there were white mountains out there. And there was a mountain called Amadablam, Mother and Child. But it was completely snow-clad. And I looked at it and I said, if it's that white and the moon's come out, it's a sign from God. Shekhar, tu marne wala nahi, ab tu aage chal. Then finally.
Did you meet the girl? I know who the girl is, but did you meet the girl finally?
Yes.
Oh, you did.
Never narrated it. Never. Because but ultimately it was, oh, Sheila Putra frozen to death ho gaya, kudiyan de piche piche frozen to death ho gaya. I was like, I still remember. It drove me not to die. That's my relationship with my mom. That's like rebellion. Yeah.
That is so cute. That is so mad. But tell me, like you were the nephew of Dev Anand and Vijay, your mom's or Dev Saab's sister. So was that were you not afflicted by the filmy atmosphere, or were you like as a child? Did you go to film premieres? Was there anything? None of it affected you.
No. I remember because I lived in Delhi.
Correct.
So I would come. I mean, I have some memories.
Like, give me some examples or instances of some premiere that you met or a huge star.
No, I don't remember going to premieres, but I remember meeting Madhubala.
Really?
Yeah, as a little child. And she held my hand. I don't know why. I mean, now I know everybody says she was the most beautiful woman, but I remember her holding my hand and getting photographed with Dev Anand and Madhu. I don't know where that picture is now.
Oh, I wish you found it.
Yeah, so I remember that. And and I remember being teased all the time. I was a cute kid, right? And I had hair that I would never get cut. I just got my hair cut today for you, honestly, right? And long hair, and girls would run after me in my school, in board school. It was a co-educational school. They would run after me and tease me with ribbons. And they would call me Dev Anand's. Every time they wanted to tease me, they would call me Dev Anand's nephew.
Achha.
I used to get teased about that. And I remember Dev Uncle coming to Delhi and just seeing these massive crowds behind him. So it's incidents like that. I remember, that's it.
What about say somebody like Vijay Anand, who according to me is one of the finest? As Vijay Anand's, did he influence your filmmaking or your formative years in any way? I mean, look at his body of work, whether it's,
I think.
Like, what was the kind of conversations you had with Goldie Saab?
I'm going to be very honest on it. everybody's hoping I would go back to chartered accountancy, and because they had such huge, they had Navketan and everything. Shekhar, tu sara kam sambhalna, badi company banange. I don't want to do that, because that's it. The Anand brothers, they, like everybody else in the film market business, everybody's making money, losing money, making money, losing money, flop films, hit films. It's the nature of the business. So they thought, oh, this chartered accountant, come into our family, he'll handle us. So there was this big pressure on me to be the chartered accountant even there. But
so they didn't encourage you to join films?
No, Dev uncle, I call Dev uncle, because he was saying, हाँ आजा स्टार बनाते हैं ना, चल तेरी सबको बात दी तू आजा. So off I went to स्टार बनने गया था मैं.
Ishq Ishq Ishq. So you're also a Nepo kid, technically.
Of course I'm a Nepo kid that never got anywhere with my Nepoism, right? But of course, I went to Ishq Ishq Ishq, स्टार बनने गया था, बिल्कुल.
And romanced and came back.
Had an adventure and came back, yeah. Everything in life that we do is another adventure. If you live it, it's an adventure. If you don't live that moment, then it's passed by. Then it's not an adventure. Then you don't get anything from it. But I do remember I lived a little bit with Goldie uncle as a
I want to know, did he give you any piece of advice or something?
But I remember sitting with him once. Two things I'll never forget about the film industry. One day, a very famous writer came to see him. I was sitting there. He says, "Gauri साहब, बहुत बड़ी hit film लिखी है मैंने, मैं आपको सुनाता हूँ." And you know what he was like? He was calm. He says, "आज तक तो मेरे पास कोई नहीं आया जिसने कहा कि मैंने flop film लिखी." So I remember that. Then I remember sitting one day with breakfast with Dev uncle, some film he had made and was running, and so the producer was also there at breakfast, and in his big enthusiastic way, he was always enthusiastic about everything. There was nothing that killed his enthusiasm. So I don't remember. Amarjeet Shah. Amarjeet, picture बनाई तो कोई बेचा कुछ? You know what the answer? हाँ साहब. Wife की jewelry बेच दी, घर बेच दिया. And then he made a list of things he had to sell to make the film. And do you think that killed Dev Anand? Ever? नहीं, अच्छा है, ऐसे ही बनती है फिल्म में ना, चलो आगे बढ़ो. I'll tell you one incident. Maybe the most significant one. You learn, things you learn. If you don't learn, then you forget. Ishq 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 had just released. It was Dev Anand's own money. And I went to the premiere. I had a small part in it. And it's my first film. And by the time it was edited, my part was about 5 seconds. I came back. I was sitting with him, me and him, in his hotel room at the Oberoi. He was getting calls. And as always, in the movie business, everybody that calls you first, they always say, "All right, Dev, I've got fantastic film, buddy." And I could see the enthusiasm. And then the real reality started. Acha, I could just hear him. Acha, उठ के चली गई. Acha. And gradually, reality hit that his most ambitious film ever, where he had put all his own money, he'd lost all his money, his most ambitious film ever, had sunk. 15 minutes, I saw the change from wow to all gone. I was watching him, and then he said, "मैं जरा bathroom जाके आता हूँ." He must have been gone 5 minutes. Came in. "Shekhar, चल एक फिल्म बनाते, एक नया आइडिया सोचा मैंने." And he sat. And he just wiped that away. If I could just learn that, and now I know where the adventure comes from. If I could learn that from that man, I wish I knew they were all going to die one day. But they did. And so I wish I had asked many questions that I wanted to ask. I know that in a way I was influenced by Vijay Anand as a director, by his editing styles. You'll find that in some of my films. But I know when I did Bandit Queen, Chetan called me and said, "How dare you make that film?"
Goldie साहब और चेतन साहब?
चेतन साहब. Said, "फिल्म में एस्थेटिक होती है, खूबसूरत होती है. ये क्या बनाया तूने?" I mean, told off by my uncle to make because I made Bandit Queen. So it's a funny relationship with your relatives and your uncles and the messages that you get.
So you would hang out on the sets. I mean, you of course you did To Take Khilone, and so you were at that point. Were you known as this actor who's trying to make it? Shabana Azmi's boyfriend.
Yeah.
All of that you were known as.
Of course.
So did that bother you, or you were like, let me just figure?
Yeah, never bothered me. I remember my mom coming in and I picked her up from the airport. They come in and said, how you? I'm telling her, "Arey, मैं उस producer से मिला, just to give her hope, something hope, my hope." And suddenly, they were stardust at that time, right? There was this huge poster on what was Pedder Road, biggest lassu in town, Shekhar Kapur. And my mom looked at that. I saw tears in her eyes. I said, "Mom, लिखते रहते हैं."
What is lassu?
Lassu is a loser.
Loser. Okay.
It's an Indian thing of loser. It's lassu, the biggest loser in town. I mean, why was that important anyway to be put on a poster? I don't know. But my mother saw it as I was telling her, "Oh, big future, great future, lovely, biggest loser in town." So these things, did it affect me? No. Part of the adventure.
So how long did you like actively act when you then finally decided? Did the offers dry up, or you said, okay, this is it? You were kicked out of acting.
I was never kicked in to be kicked out. I learned how to act after I started working with great actors as a director. I'll tell you where people, but I'd already started. I learned acting after I started direct. When I did Masoom, it wasn't because I was kicked out. The story of how Masoom came about is also very interesting.
Let's hear that.
I was driving in Delhi. I was going to a petrol pump, and I'd just seen this film called Ardha Satya. Yeah, Devi Dutt was the producer. Who was,
Guru Dutt's brother.
Guru Dutt's cousin. And I met a guy from my school, junior, who said, "Are you're Shekhar?" I said, "Yeah, I don't remember me from school with you." I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I distribute movies." Huh? Okay. I said, "You should see this film called Ardha Satya, which Devi Dutt had just made." So he came to Bombay to see Ardha Satya. He bought Ardha Satya. And he released it and did really well. So Devi Dutt was very impressed and happy with me because I introduced him. He said, "तुम्हें भी बनानी चाहिए film, तुम direct करो." That's how Masoom started. I said, "हाँ, बिल्कुल, ये देखो."
You had written.
I had written a script called Bardasht with Naseeruddin Shah. And then he took me to the financier. Kahani sunaओ. I started to tell him the story of this. It was a very good story. It was the theme was there is no more dangerous man than a man who's lost everything and you push him in a corner, has nothing to lose. That's the most dangerous man in the world. That was the story. And I told him, and the financier is sitting there, and he started to yawn. And I remember that very clearly. I'm narrating my first story ever to my first potential financer ever for my first film ever. And the guy's sitting there yawning. Oh, shit. Then I looked around. There were lots of pictures of kids behind him. And I changed the story. And I started to tell the story of Masoom. ऐसे ही बनाता रहा, बोलता रहा, and my producer Devi is kicking me on the table. You see what I mean? Is it possible for anybody to tell me that life is not an adventure? That's it. That's how Masoom was born. And then now people say, "अरे क्या फिल्म तूने बनाई?" अरे मेरी कहानी यार ऐसे बनी है वो फिल्म यार, वो बनते चलते एडवेंचर होते फिल्म बन गई.
You had read Man, Woman and Child.
I'd read it a long time ago.
So it stayed somewhere.
Somewhere it stayed. So I keep saying, no, it's not a cop because they made Man, Woman and Child into film. It's nowhere the same film.
It's a better film. Masoom is a better film.
But yeah, the idea of kids stayed.
Talking about Masoom, you said you let go. Was Masoom like a last-ditch effort for you, or you realized like this is my calling, like when you started making the film?
I don't know if directing is still my calling. I don't know.
No,
Honestly,
you're the
I
best.
don't think like that. It's my calling. Every time I make a film, I think, यार तो मुझे फिल्म बनानी आती नहीं. और अगर मुझे ऐसे लगता है that I literally, when I go to the sets, if I feel I know what I'm doing, I'll kill my mind. ऐसा नहीं मैं prepare नहीं करता. I'm like a general going to war to shoot the next day. But then that's just preparation. So what am I shooting? Because the moment has not arrived. So on the way, I'll tell literally you should ask my assistants in London when I don't know how to direct a film. I don't know what am I going to do? Oh my God. It's like, okay, I don't know how to take my shots. I'm playing with my mind. I'm panicking my mind. If nothing works, I'll put on Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan because he's so chaotic. And so by the time I get to the sets, I have no idea what I'm going to do. Kate Blanchett used to catch them. So, 200 people are sitting there. Or I have 600 horses and camels in Morocco. I don't know what to do. But last night I knew what to do. But I don't want to do what I knew what I wanted to do. I want to do something that has emerged now. Something new. Like, why would Picasso paint if he knew exactly what the paint was, exactly what the painting was? Has to be some panic, something that leads you to do that.
So you're in a state of forever panic.
Forever panic. If you watch my TED talk, it's about that. It's about panic as the greatest tool for creativity. Then I would go to someone like, say, Kate or Shabana, say, Shabana, how would you do it? I'm buying time. And Kate will always say, Shekhar, you're not doing that again, are you? I said, yes. क्या बोलोगे? अगर तुम बोलोगे कि मुझे नहीं पता, तो then you will get fired. You're spending $500,000 on somebody else's money that day and you say, I don't know what to do. You can't do that. So you lie. I know what to do. Then something happens. Always. One moment from that moment arises. It's a moment from that moment that arises that allows Picasso to do the first brush. It's a moment that arises from a moment. And then everything falls into place. Now, can you imagine living life like that? But that's it. That's what being creative is about. I hope no producer is seeing this. मुझे तो काम ही नहीं मिलेगा इसके बाद.
No, but I have to, because I have very fond memories of Masoom. So you are this debutant director, and you decide that Gulzar Saab is going to write the story, screenplay and the dialogues and the lyrics. So, and I remember Gulzar Saab telling me once that every debutant director I've worked with, from you to Shahid Ali to Meghna Gulzar, they all think it is a do or die. Everything they want to say. So, what were the kind of creative? I remember at one point Gulzar Saab had said, "Start." You wanted to start. You didn't want the flashback of Nasir and Supriya, and he said, let's say it through dialogue. You wanted that, and the first scene you started with the hospital scene, whereas he said started with. I remember those things vaguely, but. Especially say when you're writing your lyrics or something, and you would say, was there like serious? Like, how did R.D. Burman say yes to you? What I mean, it's all.
I have the world's nicest smile.
Yeah, that you do.
I do. I get.
You know what? Your good looks save you all the time. You know that extra star that you get on your movie ratings are because of your good looks.
वो भी तो चले जाएगा. फिर मैं क्या करूँगा?
नहीं. अभी तक तो now you're almost 80. अभी तक तो नहीं चलेंगे.
Gulzar Saab was very busy. I'm very restless. अभी ये script लिखनी है. Gulzar Saab was busy. He was doing directing a lot of films those days. So I had just developed a relationship with my first wife, Medha. And I used to go to Guru Dutt's sons were friends of mine in Pali. They used to live in Pali.
Tarun and Arun.
So Tarun dost tha. So I used to wait for him to go away to his office and everything so I could be alone with Medha to go to his house, right? And I narrated her. She had a lovely handwriting. So इस बहाने में बुला लेता उसको. And so I narrated all of Masoom in about 2 weeks.
And that's how you fell in love with Medha.
I think I was in love with her. That's why I used to call her. Right. And so narrated बना बनू के मैं पहुंच गया. naivety. As I said, naivety is one. It's a great asset. Because I सब देखो मैंने लिख दी. So like, I don't know what he ever thought of me. And he looked at me and he said, "ये script थोड़ी है, Bible है." I remember those words. And someday on my, but he was so nice to me. He actually paid for me to go, for us to go to the West End Hotel
In Bangalore.
Live there and write the lyrics. He paid for that. There was different days. And I got very sick when we were planning to do Lakdi Ki Kati, this amazing song. Right? And I knew I had gone to Gulzar, so I said, let's do a nursery rhyme kind of song with these kids and everything. So that's how he wrote Lakdi Ki Kati. I got very sick, so I had checked into a hotel because it was something that was very I could have easily given it to. I was living with my sister, given it to kids. It was mumps at a very late age, so I checked into a small little hotel, and R.D. suddenly got a call from R.D. Burman and said, and he's singing and laughing and he's saying mumps, mumps, and he made a whole song about mumps. Like,
Wow.
so those were the kind of relationships we had, yeah.
Amazing, amazing.
And you know what? Nobody asked me, क्या कहानी है? कैसे shoot कर रहे हो? Camera यहाँ क्यों? I'd never done it. I'd never been an assistant. I've never read a book on filmmaking. I was just interested. पूछा ही नहीं किसी ने. आज पूछो. When somebody goes to make a film and a director and he's faced with 5 people with notebooks, क्या कहानी कैसे बना रहे अच्छा ऐसे क्यों नहीं? There it was. You were free to express yourself. I felt complete freedom to express myself when I was making Masoom. Complete. I don't know that when I talk to directors here these days, they're constantly complaining about what the producers are saying, what the what the OTT platform is saying, what they're saying. तो मैंने कहा तुम फिल्म बनाते कैसे हो? बनाते क्यों हो? अगर ऐसा है तो don't do it. There are 10 other things to do with your life here. So you can go up to the mountains and run after some girl and die. Like they can do that. It's an adventure. There's some other adventures.
So Devidat was a great producer.
Yeah. Most of the time he couldn't understand what I was doing. But I remember once he said, I've run out of raw stock, Shekhar. We don't have, so you have to, no, I can't shoot these scenes. I knew where the stock was. So we used to go in the morning, it was under his bed, sneak into his room, steal the stock, go out and shoot before he would wake up. ऐसा भी किया. Even in Masoom, then I've done it all my films. I've sneaked away, done this without people knowing, taken my crew without the producers knowing everything. Ashok Mehta and I used to get up. When I tell you stories of Bandit Queen once about what Ashok Mehta and I used to get up to. But yeah. I think one of the Chopra company, they had made this girl called The Burning Train.
Yeah.
And
Ravi
Chopra. And some tragedy happened. Actually, there was bogus train that actually got burnt. So they had banned filmmaking in railway stations and with railways. Masoom's Climax was there. So I got Nasir and Satish and little Shugal to rehearse the scene, get on the previous station onto the platform. I knew where they would get off and hidden cameras. And they got off and they performed the scene and walked out of the frame, and I had a hidden camera. They shot it like that.
I remember reading, at that point, Anil Tejani, Shabana, Aruna Vikas, who edited Masoom, they were your... How did you convince Shabana and Nasir to come on board?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
But of course, Shabana was always very supportive and,
I don't know. I don't know. Ask her. Why? I don't know. It just happened.
Is there a lot of you in Nasir's character in Masoom?
I think Nasir became me. I think because Nasir said, Achha, explain the character to me. And I remember that conversation. I said, Nate, he's a human being. That was the first thing I said to him. He's a human being and he reacts normally like a human being. And I remember Nasir then coming to my house, meeting my dad. He wore my clothes. I think Nasir just gradually became me in Masoom. I say, intimacy of filmmaking, sometimes I feel today is missing. It was
200%.
intimate filmmaking, intimate, really intimate. And that shows when I watch the film again, I'm embarrassed by a few things.
Like?
No, I can't say.
But did you think it would become so iconic, especially the music, the movie? I mean,
If I'm making now what I call them
Masoom 2.
Masoom 2. If there's 1,000 people and I say I'm making Masoom 2, everybody gets up and cheers. So what? Did I know that Masoom would happen? I'm not saying that I made it. I'm just saying, how do you know? How do you know that Mr. India would become a cult film? I didn't know. I just made it. So I'm just part of the process of what was happening. So now I've got used to saying it. Maybe it's just an excuse. People say, "अरे वो तो film कब बना रहा है?" तो मैं कहता हूँ, "ये वो film की मर्जी." You know?
The film finds you.
The film finds you. But I believe in that. It's not that I don't work hard. I'm an obsessive worker. I work all the time. I write stories all the time. Otherwise, I would have been dead by now.
And did you get newfound respect with Masoom? Of course, you won so many awards and all of that. Did you get and then you got into the bad world of the movies with Mr. India. Suddenly it was.
Oh no! Before that, I got into Joshile.
Oh, Joshile is after Masoom.
Yeah.
Okay. That's before Mr. India.
Before Mr. India.
Okay.
Mr. India actually saved me.
And you walked out of Joshile and Sipte Hassan Rizvi made completed.
He's passed away. I shouldn't say much about that, but it was. I think that one thing I should learn, but I still don't learn, is it's teamwork. Don't be more ambitious than you have to lead your team. They have to follow you as a director. They have to be inspired by you, all of that. But don't take your team beyond what they're capable of.
Like, give me an example.
I took 12 horses to Ladakh and did that, all of that, and I just took a whole crew to shoot that film in Ladakh and Leh, and we used to wait for scenes to come in the morning because the aircraft nahi hote the un dino mein itne. Twice a week, you used to get a plane in. And I realized at the end of it that the producer just didn't say no to me. And I thought, I'm very persuasive. When I get passionate, I'm very persuasive. He just didn't say no. But I realized at one point when it all went wrong that I had pushed him beyond where he wanted to say no and just couldn't. So
you bullied him?
I bullied him. I bully people all the time. If I want to make a film, you have to bully someone. You have to bully. It's a difficult thing to do. You bully people.
How much of Joshile is you?
But everything I shot is me.
Which is about 50%?
50%, yeah.
So, you were working with, say, Sri Devi for the first time, Meenakshi, massive stars like Sunny Deol and Anil Kapoor. Were they all on the same page as you in that sense?
Sri Devi went out of her way to support me. Constantly giving interviews. Or amazing. Look, if all her interviews say, what's your favorite director? Shekhar Kapur. What's she done with me? One film, Mr. India. And half a film, Joshile. But there was something, but she was fiercely supportive of her, at least, I'm assuming, directors for me. I had a huge crush on her because of that. Huge. Suddenly, everything's falling down, and Sunny was the other one. Hugely supportive. They believed in the adventure of it. They believed that what Shekhar is saying, this is the adventure. They believed in the passion and the adventure of it. I was the one who was leading everybody down the path where I must have known, but I was not accepting. It's beyond the capacity of what the producers can give me.
So you don't think Joshile is a bad film? Like when you started?
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it?
Because it was directed by other people after I left, so I've not seen it.
And then there was Mr. India. You know, I mean, when you talk about iconic, Sridevi is iconic. What is, like, I mean, Sridevi was not a very communicative person. Her magic was on screen, like once the cameras were off. So how did, you explain stuff to her? What was the kind of, I mean, the magic that, whether it's katte nahi katte, for example, which sort of spawned Hazar rip-offs of the song, Hazar.
I'll tell you how that started. You have no idea about that. But you direct me, I'm Sridevi. I'll tell you what the community. Try and direct me for any one scene. I'll tell you what. I'm Sridevi.
So Shekhar, put your hand up. And now you have to jump.
No, explain the scene to me.
How do I explain a scene?
Say any scene. Just take any scene and explain it to me.
So then the heroine walks into the door, and then she's dressing up, and then she puts on a sari, and then she has to go, and then she breaks into a song. That's the scene.
Oh.
That is how you are explaining to her.
No, that's her response. I'm doing her response. She would just get it like that. Yeah. Intuitive. She was very, very intuitive.
I believe she was also running a 103 temperature.
Oh, during the
Katte nahi.
Katte nahi katte. But she didn't tell me. I found out later. The choreographer told me that she was running and she would not stop. And with all that water and everything on her. And I remember going to her when I wanted to do. Suddenly thought one day that she'd look good in. I mean, I think you'd look good in a moustache. Can you imagine? So, and then from there developed the Charlie Chaplin scene.
How did she do that?
Oh, man, she
Killed
watched
it.
videos after videos of Charlie Chaplin and came and did a perfect impersonation of Charlie Chaplin. I don't think we'll get somebody like her again. She was stunning, intuitive. Or when she was sitting there not saying anything, you think, okay, looks neat. And then, but somewhere in there, she was absorbing and creating. Just stunning. Mr. India's her. Is actually Sridevi. And everybody knows that. And Mogambo, of course. I remember my... और मैं अच्छा कैसा है भैया शेखर बताओ कैसा क्या करेगा I said Amriji, you're doing Shakespeare. So he's like, huh? He was a theater actor, right? You're doing Shakespeare. Yeah. Okay. But you're doing Shakespeare for 12-year-old kids. But those 12-year-old kids come from a village who've never heard of Shakespeare. So the only instructions I gave him. And from there came Mogambo. From Shakespeare to...
It was funny unintentionally, right?
But it's a very Shakespearean performance, exaggerated 100 times. If you watch him again, it's very Shakespearean. Exaggerated 100 times. For 11-year-old kids that don't know about Shakespeare that are in the village.
And how was it working with Javed Saab on the script?
Javed Saab, yeah, great. I mean, how do you work with her? I haven't worked with him after that. But where do these lines come from? इस घर की खासियत ये है कि ये सीढ़ियां ये नीचे से ऊपर जाती हैं और वही सीढ़ियां ऊपर से नीचे आती हैं. That's genius. I'll never forget when I heard it. I said, genius. I was working with Javed Akhtar as absolute peak.
He wrote the lyrics for Joshile also, no?
He wrote the lyrics for Joshile, yeah. Joshile was a strange experience for all of us. But Mr. India was absolutely at peak. Wait, who writes lines like that? Right?
No, that is another sort of magic. Completely with business. And then you did so many films which you walked out of. Barsat, which was Champion. You were thrown out.
I was thrown out. I was fired. I've been the most...
Roop
Kirani, I was never supposed to do.
No? Prem
I was thrown out of.
Why? But you gave us Tabu.
No, I hadn't cast Tabu.
No?
I've been thrown out of films. I promise you. I've been like, I must be the successful director of this, then thrown out of this.
Okay, let's count. How many films have you been thrown out of? I remember Champion also you were supposed to do, which was
Champion, I've never done. I didn't do it.
later Barsat.
No. Champion was not Barsat. Barsat was something that was being developed, and
Huh.
I think that I was not quite understanding. Dhananji had ideas, and we were just developing, and then one day, I think Sunny was in London, and he called the guy who took over. What's his name?
Raj Santoshi.
Raj Santoshi. I talked to Raj. I said, Raji, because you've done films with them before, you can help. So he talked to Dhananji, मैं संभालता हूँ. And then I found he was directing it. That's it. That's all that happened. People say I walked out of it. Let me be honest. I did not walk out of it. Mind you, I immediately went and made Bandit Queen after that.
So Bandit Queen was your response to being thrown out of all these films?
No, it was my response to anything. I said, there's no cause and effect in my life at all.
Let's talk about Bandit Queen. How did, Mala Sen's book, iconic book, and that, I mean, forget the post reactions. There was Arundhati Roy who went ballistic, and there was Phulan Devi who decried the film. But I have seldom seen a far more powerful in the history of Indian cinema. Right from the opening close shot where she starts with an abuse. Bandit Queen, really, it is Bollywood before Bandit Queen and Hindi cinema after Bandit Queen. So another thing, these, you were called this lazy director who takes 3 years. Bandit Queen and Masoom were made in 38 days?
Something like that.
38.
Masoom was 40 days. Bandit Queen was actually 60 days because we had many, many more locations to do.
I have many, many Bandit Queen stories, but before that, I have to ask you about the Bandit Queen experience, because that has to be the, in terms of film, most seminal film.
I was asked to see Bandit Queen again because they wanted a new director's commentary. So I went and saw the film. I came out sobbing, and everybody said, oh my God, look, he's been affected by his own film so much. But the truth was, I said, I'm sobbing because I'll never be able to make a film like this again. I won't. It just took everything out of me. Everything. When I decided to direct it, I went and looked and everything. I realized that the story of Phulan Devi was on the 3rd page of Times of India, and we didn't even notice. And then ultimately, I started to study the politics of rape. And I realized that the only way I could make the film, but I do that often by becoming the antagonist and protagonist both in my life. The only thing that what I did was I decided that why don't I see myself as a rapist? So I imposed, because look, I'm Punjabi, and what are we told? Ki, कितनी सोनी लड़की है, कितनी शर्मीली है. We're taught that. Girls are shy, and a man has to be the seducer, Punjabi. And I don't know that happened. And when I started to study it, before I went into the film, I realized that the only way I have to understand that psyche of the rapist, and the only way I can do it is by being it, because inside us, we had everything. I'm the greatest spiritual guru and the worst rapist in the world. It's all lying. The potential is inside me all the time. So I wrote. So it was tough for me to make that film. Tough. It's difficult. I can tell you how difficult it was. In Bandit Queen, there was a scene where the little girl got married to a much older man, and he turned out to be a pedophile. And I set it up, and we had a little room. I did not know how to shoot it. How do you shoot the rape of a 12-year-old girl? How do you do it? What do you do? And make it authentic and not yet gratuitous. Ashok Mehta was lighting. I probably learned more about filmmaking than Ashok Mehta than anybody else in this world.
Master.
And he shouts a lot.
In Punjabi.
Yeah, he's Afghani actually. Yeah, and he was screaming and shouting, "Hey, there's noise going on. This small set, smaller than this, or maybe the size of the studio." And I'm looking at it and saying, "Here's this 12-year-old girl. Tigmanshu Dhulia was my. We found there were a family of people that would sing on the streets. That's where she came from." And I was thinking, could I find her sexy? I'm sitting there thinking, can I find this 12-year-old girl sexy? Do I have it in me? And I'm convincing myself, Shekhar, okay, fine. What would you do if you found her sexy? And she's been calling me uncle throughout. And then suddenly I sense silence. Ashok Mehta's not shouting. The crew's gone down in this silence. I got aware of the silence and realized what I was doing. I just got up. And all I was doing was walking towards her. She was backing off. What did she sense in me? What was I doing? How was I looking? But when I sensed that silence, that became the first shot of the scene, and then everything followed. So when people say to me, "I'm directing a camera, koi to shoot karo," it doesn't work like that. It doesn't. You tear yourself apart. Whatever kind of film you do, if you're passionate about it, you tear yourself apart. I remember that moment a lot. I remember that silence. Then realized what I was doing. And that turned into the first shot of the film, of that scene. If you ever watch it again, see that. That's the first shot. Just simply walking towards it. Pagal log hain hum.
No, you're crazy. But lovely crazy. But you know what? Actually, very interesting. Chandan Roy Sanyal told me he saw it. Obviously, all the men in the wanted to go and see this film. He saw it in a Delhi theater packed with men, and who thought we'll get titillated and all that. When the film got over, there was absolute pin drop silence. There was like complete. And the second thing, Gajraj, I think it was Gajraj Rao who told me they were put in a very bad hotel. He was basically talking about hierarchies of and you shouted at the exec producer and said they will eat, live, do everything what me the other whatever good treatment is accorded to you, the same sort of preference and everything. They all remember your kindness 35 years later. Gajraj, and I don't remember the and also of course Manoj Bajpayee is always saying wonderful things, but they said it was so easy chatting with you. You were not this despotic director who was also obviously the conditions. You were making such an intense film. But you never created any of the. Usually, people create. There are a lot of these so-called intense directors who create a state of panic on the set and make it. But you made it so easy for all of them, and there you have Bandit Queen. So, I mean, I'm talking about feedback when you get. How did you deal with were you angry? How did you deal with the post? I mean, everybody later acknowledged like it's one of the finest films made, but how did you deal with the, criticism that it was exploitative or, Fulan Devi went to say ki she does not endorse the film, or somebody like Arundhati Roy wrote a piece against it. While a lot of people at the preview said great things about, they came out and wrote contrary things. But generally,
Puran Devi came to one of the first screenings at the Asiad Village and endorsed the film. Then everything else followed. Now, it's a huge story of what actually was going on. I was not allowed to meet Puran Devi before the film. I tried to take her with me to Cannes. She wanted to come. It was being shown at Cannes, but they wouldn't give her a passport because she was still under trial. So between me and Puran Devi, we got to know each other quite well, in a way, but as well as you could. So the politics around the film they're very complex. Who wanted what? Who wanted what? Who would get something out of it? Who would?
So the censors banning it also was a political thing?
The censor did not ban it. They gave a lot of cuts.
Mm.
And then we fought against the cuts. And then we got more. Ultimately, we gave it to the revising committee. There was a very good judge, I forget his name, who was on the revising committee. And then he called me. And he said, Shekhar, look, I love your film. I'll let this go, but then you have to let that go. I said, okay. And that's how it came out. And when that came out, then it got released. And you know when it got released, it just got packed theaters everywhere. Then they said, Acha, it's only men who are coming to see naked women, people. Then I said to the distributor, let's do women-only shows. Then we did women-only shows, and they were even more packed. And then there was a case against the film, me and the producers and the censor board in the Jaipur High Court. So the film was taken off again. And then we fought in the Supreme Court. And then we won. And then, but yeah, it was a year and a half, 2 years, the whole process.
So what does all this do to you, this churning? Like what would be the advice you would give young filmmakers? Is it tough every time you want to make a film? Do you have to have nerves of steel? What is it?
No. How deep do you want to go? Is the idea. Are you willing to, when you look down, remember there are lots of videos out now of people jumping down. There's little over a cliff down. Are you willing to jump? It depends what you want. That's what I wanted. I can't give who I am to every other filmmaker. Every filmmaker has to decide. Every relationship is different. Every way of life is different. Everybody's experience is different. Everybody's way of directing films. Everybody's reason to direct a film is different. My reason to direct a film is different from other people for other films. So, this thing of what advice do you give filmmakers is make a film. What else can I say? I'm not the one that can dominate how you should or how creativity should be. That's my thing, and my creativity changes with every film. Thank God for that. Otherwise, I'd be making the same film again and again.
True. And then again, you chucked it all up, went to Hollywood. I think you were one of the first literally crossover directors, and you slept on sofas of friends.
I've always slept.
And you wooed Kate Blanchett, and she got the Academy Award. How's that? I can't wrap my head around.
No, I did not woo Kate Blanchett.
For the film.
No, yeah, but she was not known. So I didn't have to woo her. She was unknown. And I had to fight to get her into the film. I remember when I wanted her, my agent, I had an agent by that time, calling me and saying, Shekhar, why? When every other girl, stars want to do this part, this is your first film outside, you're asking for an unknown girl to do the part.
So everyone had seen Bandit Queen and you were like the toaster of town. Okay, so you were not like an unknown.
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
And everybody, the big stars called me. I went to everybody's house to have dinner because of Bandit Queen. Right? But I'd लोग कहते हैं ना कि वो गया वहां बैंडेड की वजह से उसको फिल्म मिल गई नहीं 3 साल लगे यार I had to convince them I can speak English. Had to convince them that I understand. Heads of studios would sit with me and say, Shekhar, you have to understand there's a 3-act structure. I said, I understand. Bandit Queen doesn't have a 3rd act because if it had a 3rd act, you would not come out of the film being angry. I took the 3rd act away. So those things. But then my agent said, no, if you want a new girl, then they'll probably look for another director. So मैं डर गया 3 साल हो गए खाना वाना नहीं है पैसे नहीं है कुछ नहीं है I finished my bank accounts like that. तो अब क्या करूं, right? तो मैं मान गया अच्छा नई लड़की लेते हैं दूसरी कोई स्टार ढूंढते हैं. I woke up in the morning and say, अरे यार तू तो पंजाब शेर है तू की कर रहा है? How come you just said, I picked up the thing and just fit my anger and said, tell them to fire me. And then I said, okay. They said, okay, you call Kate Blanchett here also. And we'll do screen tests for 3 girls. It's fine. Didn't give the dialogues to any of the other girls. I just gave them to Kate. Games we play. So, but I almost got fired before I made that film. And now imagine that I had not got Kate Blanchett. Who knows what the film would have turned out to be like. She became Elizabeth. Did I do that? Maybe I was part of it, but she did it herself. Actors do things themselves also. Great actors move, create movies. I'm already saying, look, Sri Devi was Bandit Queen. It was Mr. India. Kate Blanchett was Elizabeth. So you have to be sometimes take that risk. Call me your agent and say, no, I'm not doing it. Then I might have got fired. Then Elizabeth would not have happened. I would have had to come home and say, yaar, koi mere movie de do. But it happened. I did it. It's life.
And then you made Four Feathers, and then you made Elizabeth too. Were you ever accused of like an anti-colonial stand or something like that?
Yeah. But that's a deliberate thing I do. If you look at Four Feathers, the original film that they made, and the new film, my whole intention of making Four Feathers was to show that the British, it's the story of the British that went to save Gordon, and they lost at the Battle of Abu Klea. In fact, people still say that the best battle scene ever shot in Hollywood is that one. But my whole stance is they're not supposed to be. What were they doing in the what was Gordon doing there? So I was rebelling against them. They were never supposed to be there. Thank God they lost. Right. So, yeah.
Did you take a lot of creative liberties when you made a film like Elizabeth?
Yeah, it was on me.
So
of course I did.
They were okay. The Brits were okay with that kind of.
The producers never said a word. It was between me and the writer and the actors. It's not like now. I still remember. I mean, I'll tell you a scene that I shot. Nobody knew that I was doing that. There was a scene where I shot it. It was supposed to be the part where she's decided to become Virgin Mary, that she's going to adapt. I shot it in a cathedral, and I was looking through the camera, and I said, it's not looking spiritual enough. I said, why, Shekhar, is not looking spiritual? Why? It's because if something is spiritual, it doesn't have straight, firm lines. Spiritual is ethereal. I'm shooting the scene, how do I make it more ethereal? And you know what I did? Okay? I asked my cameraman, give me a hot brick. And I put a hot brick under the lens. So you know what it does?
Foams up.
It just takes the air there. And nobody dared ask me not to do it. Of course, they must have said, ये पागल आदमी है, इंडिया से आ गया, वो एक गर्म ईंट लेकर कैमरा के लेंस के नीचे रख दी उसने, और चलो आप शूट करो. Madness. And then when we were selling, so the film used to go back to the lab, and the lab would call me and said, sir, you didn't close the gate properly. It's shaking a little bit. I said, no, it's deliberate. Now, you're not going to notice it, but there's a subconscious thing that'll happen in your head. There's a ethereality that came out, slightly added to the scene, added to the performance, added to the dialogue. That somewhere there's an ethereal sense of the way the whole cathedral looked. Madness, of course.
But talking about Heath and Sushant, what were your kind of interactions with them?
Heath, I died, unfortunately, and Sushant died, unfortunately. With Heath, I still have all his emails. He used to call me my brother from another mother. We were very, very, very close. And he died. I was in New York, and we were supposed to meet. He had come from overseas to New York. He was living in New York those days, and he was very jet lagged. So he said, Shekhar, call me at 9 in the morning, and we'll meet at 11. I have a massage, something. So because I'm very close, I said, you come here to Deepak Chopra's massage center. We'll do that there. We'll chat. I said, okay. I was going to call him at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I said, yaar, bechara, he's jet lagged. We made this very big kind of film, and he was shooting for the Joker, right? And I said, must be really tired, and I'll not bother him. 11 o'clock, I came back to Deepak Chopra's apartment, and he said, Shekhar, sit down. I said, yeah, okay. I sat down. He said, Heath Ledger is dead. I said, no, he's coming here at 11. He'll be here soon. He said, no, he's dead. So that was Heath. No, we were very close. And was he? No. All of us carry a certain amount. I mean, we become creatively, we all carry a certain amount of angst in us. Yeah. In Sushant, I never saw any mental illness at all. He was obsessive about doing everything well. Whether it was his exercising or whether his rehearsal, you should somewhere ask him to show you his rehearsals for Pani. He was obsessive about it. He would call me. He would come to my house. He'd come to my house at night and say, how do you think I did that? How do you think I did that? How do you think I did that? He was the same. Obsessive about doing the things and obsessed about the art. I used to have a big argument with my DOP in Four Feathers about Heath Ledger. My DOP was a four-time Oscar winner, the one who did Four Feathers. And he did Platoon and all those films he had done, And I used to keep saying, make sure that you can see his eyes. And he said, Shekhar, I can't light every shot for you to want to look into the actor's eyes. I mean, look, I said, I know. But I can see more in his eyes than I can see in all of the desert. That was the kind of actor he was. His eyes were like great windows to his soul.
What does it do to your own mental health, and how do you handle, the ups and downs, and, have you been to therapy? Have you had...
I've never had therapy. I've often thought I'd go to therapy, but I'll become the therapist who will become the actor. I'll become the director. I know exactly what will happen.
You'll navigate that also.
I'll navigate that. I'll convince the therapist that he needs therapy. I know myself. Everyone needs a little bit of therapy. I've been... this madness, we call it madness because I don't have any word, this ideas and the way that I'm driven. क्या डर लगता है मुझे लोग कहते हैं तो डर नहीं लगता? I'm mortally scared. When you realize that you've given your life to absolute uncertainty, of course you're scared. Of course there's a whole instinct in us that we want to be certain about what will happen tomorrow. I've convinced myself I don't want to know. Of course you get what I'm saying? What? I just wrote something about regret. You go back and you regret everything I've just said. If you read my latest post, it talks about that. It talks about the fact that if you allow yourself to regret, that will become your biggest anchor that will hold you down and not let you go forward. I go through everything that everybody else goes through here. I'm just mad enough to say, चल चलते हैं देखते हैं क्या होता है चल चलते हैं देखते हैं पहाड़ों में जाते हैं चलेंगे देखते हैं क्या होता है चल देखते हैं क्या होता है is something that you convince yourself to do because you don't grow up. I've not grown up. What do I do? But I'm happy not being a child. Not that the others are happy. Others get angry. But my daughter tells me she has more wisdom than I do. Daddy, stop being such a child. She tells me that.
But what is the kind of advice that you give Kaveri?
The only advice I can say is don't be afraid. And she said, I'm not afraid. So no, I can't. How can I give advice to somebody who seems to be born with greater wisdom than I have in my life? She has it. She and Deepak Chopra talk for hours about the meanings of life. So where am I in all that equation? Poetry, when I read her poetry, I wish I could write that. I can't. With such deep meaning, I can't do that. So I listen to her advice more than I give her. It's true.
You also put A.R. Rahman on the international, when on Andrew Lloyd Webber and Rahman came together with. You want to take us back to the time of Bombay Dreams. How did all that happen? And I think around the same time you had started this
Four Feathers.
Four Feathers, yeah.
Andrew and I got to know each other. Andrew and I, we were talking about me directing Phantom of the Opera for the screen, which never happened because I went on to Four Feathers. But we became friends. And one day I was sitting for lunch with him, and I started to talk about the story that I had that I want to make a film because I was going to try and convince him to do the music for an Indian film. Imagine me, right, sitting there. And he was kicking me under the table. We were having lunch at this very, very posh restaurant. He was very fond of white wine. We were drinking white wine, and he was kicking me under the table. And I'm saying, see, am I got him angry by saying we do a Hindi film or an Indian film? No, he was kicking me under the table because his then manager was sitting next to him, and he didn't want him to hear it. And then he said, "Oh, this is going to be a great show for theater." But I didn't want my manager to hear it because I'm throwing him out. I don't want him to take the idea somewhere else. That's how it was born. It was born because I got kicked under the... Was
it tough convinced Rahman?
Of course, yeah. It is. Then I said, we should have this guy called Rahman. And he got really upset with me. He said, I've never done any show without my music, and you're saying I should take somebody else? But then I started to play Rahman's music to him. Right? And give the man his due. Within 2 days of listening, I would play him random Hindi film song. He said, that's Raymond, he used to call him. Raymond still calls him. That's Raymond. That's Raymond. Right? And Chaya Chaya, his kids started to sing it in song. And they would go around, to Dad, Chaya, 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 Chaya became the hit tune for a few days in his house. Then I said to Rahman, come here, come to London. But Rahman refused to come. Nini, my West में nobody will accept me. I have a fan following here. Then I had to take Andrew Lloyd Webber. We did this big party. And then Bombay Dream was born. Did I do it? No. It happened because I got kicked under the table. It's like, that's it.
Wow. Similarly...
And ultimately, I did not direct Phantom of the Opera. Somebody else did.
R.D. Burman, Andrew Lloyd Webber, A.R. Rahman, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. Give me one memory with Pancham, one memory with Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan.
To be with Nusrat is like being with God. Literally. I remember there's that scene in Bandit Queen where we were doing the music for the scene, after Bamai massacre. There were all these women on one side of the river and all the funeral pyres on the other side. And then it was the scene, we were doing that scene, and I needed the score for that. And R.D. had just passed away. And Nusrat Ali Khan was a huge fan of R.D. Burman. So he came that evening. He said, देखिए शेखर जी क्या करते हैं हम? आप फिल्म को देखिए, मैं आपकी आंखों में देखता हूँ. But how can that not be a spiritual moment? We're talking about the passing of Pancham. And this Khan Sahib looking straight into my eyes and singing for Pancham. He actually sang for the loss of Pancham. His grief was the loss of Pancham. I'm watching my film and he's watching my eyes. How does that work?
What a moment.
Yeah.
Poignant.
पहाड़ों में चढ़ गया वही है वो शीलता पुत्र होते गया और frozen to death हो गया.
But were you a tough, difficult husband?
I'm myself.
Are you an easy person to deal with?
I'm an easy person to be with. I'm not sure I'm an easy person to deal with. That's tough. I can't deal with myself. I'm a difficult person to deal with for myself. So how can other people deal with me easily?
Yeah. Bad husband or good father?
Yeah, it's like an office guy. Your father is so easy to be a father for me. I found. I wanted to be a father. You can see in Masoom, Naseer's relationship with Jugan and Siraj. You could see my desire to be a father right there because films are personal. I mean, this is something that every film that I've done, I am the characters. I am Mugambo. I am the rapist. I am Naseer. I am Shaban. I am. Otherwise, you can't create those characters unless you are the characters. So I think that I'll talk about being a father. I'm very lucky that I have a daughter that actually has greater wisdom. And so, when she was 6, 7, she said to me, Daddy, how do I know you're real? How do I know you're not in my dream? Uh, my jaw fell open. I said, well, wise men have been talking about that for centuries. Like, I cannot answer that. She doesn't remember. Like, she said, no, Daddy, I think I said, how do I know that you're not in God's dream? But I remember it. She said, how do I know that you're not in my dream and you're real? So I was born with a child that had this. So it's like I feel, I mean, look, I'm not non-spiritual, but I'm not an atheist. Is there reincarnation? I don't know. I don't know but I can believe that there is. I think that I've met people that have been born with a faculty that's greater than what they should have. So the answer is, where does creativity lie? I'll come to that. So the people I've come across are Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, A.R. Rahman, Heath Ledger, and my daughter. Wisdom beyond their years. Wisdom. So where did that wisdom come from? Not in this lifetime. Is it genetic? No, I don't have that wisdom. It's not. Maybe her mother does, or it's just something that they have access to. So people often ask me, where does creativity lie? I feel we access creativity. There are. I'm amazed at classical singers that will sing the same rag day after day, year after year, year after year, and I said, "Yaar, rag to perfect ho gaya hai, right? But why are you constantly singing that rag?" Then I realized they want to become the rag. They want the rag and themselves to come into absolute unison. That they are the rag and the rag is themselves. Now, is that a spiritual answer? Or is that a psychological answer? I don't know, but people do. That's what they do, right? I feel my daughter has that. So the question is, how do I deal with it? I don't know how to deal with it except let her, be my guru. She is, in a way. Let her be my guru. So that's how I feel as a father. As a husband, though, it's my fault. It's like, I've been a bad husband, let's face it. But let's not go there because there are things there and there are things there and there's things there. You can do so many things that you are, you justify. Self-justification is a huge human failing. You justify yourself. Any action, you justify it. Arey maine isliye kiya. But I'm wise enough now to know when I'm being self-justifying. But getting back, I mean, I'm now shifting between fatherhood and creativity because my daughter's creativity. Where does creativity come from? I don't know. Sometimes I feel that if we didn't have this, we have this cult issue. अगर ये cult issue ना होता, तो our neurons would be floating in the air. And we believe that we are connected to the whole universe. Like and now because of skull tissue we don't see, we call ourselves individuals. Maybe we're not individuals. I often say this, that we are just tendrils of the imagination of the universe imagining itself. That's who we are. So is that where creativity comes up? It's questions, they're fundamental questions. And the more I spend time with Kaveri, the more I ask this. So to me, I was like a kite floating, all my life. Frozen to death ho gaya. Either floating through the clouds, being buffeted by storms and enjoying it. And she came in and she put a string to that kite and gave that kite context. So she gave me context. So how can I not say it's the best thing that happened to my life here? She gave me context. Not the easiest, but the best.
Also, you're a parent to many actors, I've noticed. The way you coax performances out of them. Like, do you have to be, is it a psychological game? Do you have to be like a therapist?
I have a choice. I can act and show them and they'll give the world's worst performance. Right? I'm not good enough. For me, they have to find themselves. Right? And every actor that I work with, human beings, but they're not my actors, we're constantly judging ourselves. And my first thing, even with Kate Blanchett, is take away the fear of judgment away from her. I'm here. If something goes wrong, I'll tell you. I'll take that responsibility. Just don't judge yourself. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge yourself. Free yourself to perform. But if you're constantly saying, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Am I doing it? No, that's my problem. If you're doing it wrong, I'll tell you. But there's nothing called wrong. There's no right or wrong. Right? I remember in Bandit Queen telling all actors, I don't care how you interpret it. Because there's nothing right or wrong. You're actors. Know your character as much as I know them character, probably better. But be honest. I'm director enough or human being enough to know when you're not being honest. As long as you're honest, then there are 10 interpretations together we are offering to the audience. Which one do you want? Because they'll see it from their life experience. So just be honest. That's what I do with all actors, is just create an environment of love and respect where we can all be honest together. That's why a lot of directors, 90% now, will watch from a monitor. I never watch from a monitor because I feel that if I'm there's a certain energy of love has a certain energy. And then when you're sitting in an environment, you can sense the love. And I don't want to be outside that environment because if I go to the monitor, I'm outside that environment. I want to be there with my actors, and we're all together, and we're sharing this creative energy, wherever that comes from. There's a buzz of creative energy going around. I can sense it, I can feel it, and they can feel it, and they can sense it.
A lot of Hollywood actors gave their breakthrough performance. I mean, while they had done, a lot of them gave their breakthrough performances in your films. It could be Daniel Craig or Eddie Raymond. You want to talk about that a bit?
No, I don't think they're brave, but I have. Daniel Craig was in Elizabeth. People don't remember that. He was there. He was the guy that the Pope sent to kill Elizabeth. And what an amazing little performance in a tiny scene. And that he became the great Daniel Craig with Bond. Started there. He had done one little film there, but the first major film was this. Eddie Redmayne won Oscars. Yeah, amazing, amazing actor. Started in the second, in Golden Age, with me saying, Shekhar, I don't think I'm an actor enough. I'm going to leave. I said, no, you're a great actor. Do it. Just keep doing it. Started me, Kate Blanchett, of course. Jamie Bauer, the lead villain of Stranger Things.
Wow.
He was with me in Will, the series. People come and we touch each other's lives. Now, did Kate Blanchett touch my life or did I touch her life? Who knows? We touch each other's lives and become things that are different.
Superb. Any unfinished dreams? I remember you were making a film on Bruce Lee. I remember there was a...
I wanted to. I really wanted to. Ultimately, that film, look, any director will tell you, 90% of the films that they want to make and they've said they're going to make it, they try to make it, don't take off. 10% do. But if you don't put the same effort in all of them, none of them will. You don't quite know which one will because there's so much. The money has to come somewhere. I mean, Bruce Lee, I remember the money had to come from China. Then suddenly we heard that the Chinese government had said that this is not how you can portray Bruce Lee, because the story of Bruce Lee is that he escaped from China and he came to Hong Kong, and Hong Kong was full of the triads, and the triads came from China. And Yip Man, that is portrayed as this huge sort of, figure in Chinese films. Yip Man's girlfriend used to work in a club, and he was addicted to heroin. Now, we found that we couldn't say all that because some of the funding was coming from China. So a million reasons films don't get made.
What other unrealized dreams, like the Bruce Lee project?
I have 20 scripts, right? But Pani is the next one. But I'm going to make money now.
Which actor do you see?
No, I'm going to make it in AI.
Tell me more about your fascination with AI. Do you think AI can replicate love, replicate screenplays?
Screenplay is the easier thing. Replicate love is a different thing. AI, we can't run away from it. AI is an existential change to our society. It's going to affect the way we live, the way we work, right? And we will soon realize it because AI is a democratic technology. I'm starting a school. A.R. Rahman and I and Universal, we've been running a school in Dharavi, right? Music school, hip hop and rap. And some of those kids that were started with us when they were 7 or 8 are now big the hip hop stars. I'm going to open an AI film school there because all they need to do is to learn computers and prompting, and they can create a film. It's not as easy as I'm saying, but what can be a more democratic technology than that? When we were looking, people keep looking for plots for Mr. India 2. Keep looking. I've seen writers writing plots, heavily paid writers. One day, my man Friday, my cook, came to me and said, मैंने लिखा है सर मिस्टर इंडिया प्लॉट अब क्या करूं मैं या तो पढ़ लूं या खाना ठीक ठाक खाऊं. It was the best one. So I said, where did you get it? How? He said, sir, वो आपके कंप्यूटर पर chat GPT से लिया मैंने.
So, the plot of Mr. India 2.
Yeah. So there is, our society is fundamentally also because, this is not part of our brief in this interview, but AI is $1 trillion business. Right? And AI is going to fundamentally change everything, the way we live, the way we talk. Education. Nothing, you don't need, Quota Factory, that series, very popular. That is a $25 billion business in India, not just Quota Factory, but all of that. You don't need that. AI will, ChatGPT will do it for you today. What's going to happen to the schools? But AI will create a lot of opportunities. Right? People down below at what we call the bottom of the pyramid, they suddenly have a tool to be creative. It's a different thing. It's what I call the pyramid is collapsing. It's a flat pyramid. There are no more CEOs and there are no more T-boys. Right? Because ultimately, both of them have the same AI. Both of them have the same ability. So this great difference between abilities is going to collapse. But then it's the same thing with film. You don't need to be a great cinematographer. You do AI, you'll be able, these kids in Dharavi will be able to tell their stories. Every day, today, as we talk, this morning, Mid-Journey, they created, while they're being sued by Disney and Universal, they've just come up with their video software. Everybody's using it and loving it. It's a sea change. So, I don't need a star. AI will create a star for me. Why? I've seen AI. I work with people with AI, and they're doing things with visual effects, and you can't tell the difference whether it's the star or what AI has done. They look exactly the same. But why do I need them? Why can't I just create a star out of AI?
So to hell with real stars.
Have you ever met Tom Cruise? No. How do you know he exists? Because the press tells you that, because you've seen him two-dimensionally, you put him in a magazine, you've seen films. He could not exist for you. He could not, maybe not exist till you actually shake hands with him physically. He doesn't need to exist. We could create a Tom Cruise and make him do everything that he does. He goes to premiere, I can create that. He does a film, of course I can create. He gives a speech, I can create that. Why do you believe that Tom Cruise exists? Only because you believe he exists. Therefore, you believe he exists and therefore he exists. How difficult is it? It's not difficult for AI to replicate that belief, that star. Half the influencers that you're seeing today are not people. They are AI created influencers.
And finally, before I round up, I have to ask you about Masoom too. But before that, your equation with Shabana from Masoom to some What's Love Got to Do with It to Masoom 2. How did you convince her and Nasir sir to do a sequel?
I didn't have to. Of course, Shaman and I worked in What's Love Got to Do with It after so many years.
Yeah,
So,
40 years.
yeah. But we kind of caught up as if those 40 years were only 2 years or 1 or 2 years. We were still exactly in the same wavelength as an actor. And
Do you argue a lot on sets with her?
who wants to argue with Shavana? She'll win it. But she listens. She completely quietly listens, as does Nasir listened. I just said I'm doing it, and Nasir just looked at me with that amazingly compassionate face he can bring up, with almost tears in her eyes, and said, "Of course, I'll do it." Shabana said, "Of course, I'll do it." Now we'll fight about the script. We'll fight about the characters. We'll argue this way and that way. But the first thing was, of course, we'll do it. And I love the fact that if I go and there are 1,000 people in the hall and I say I'm making a sequel to Masoom, everybody gets up and cheers. Why? What did I do? I have no idea. What I do know, I was naive and I did not really know everything about filmmaking. So I have to get back to being naive and forget that I've climbed the mountain 10 times. Forget. Climb a different mountain.
But who'll replace Pancham?
Yeah, I have some music from a new director, and I cannot say that nobody can replace Pancham, but there's a new, they call Mati Bani as a group, husband and wife, Karthik, and his wife Nirali, and they've done some amazing music for me already. There. Replacing Pancham? How? How do you replace Pancham? He's just a phenomenon.
Will Gulzar Sahab write the lyrics again?
I haven't approached him yet. He might just throw me out of the house.
Why?
Who knows? Who knows? I've done some pretty stupid things in my life. Yeah. Cholo.
Tell me, there was one incident that you had mentioned somewhere which stayed with me. Is it true that, I mean, you are a 1-year-old child. Were you on that train from Pakistan?
Yeah.
Did that leave any impact on you?
I don't know. How do I know with a 1-year-old? I mean, my mother didn't even tell me that. She told my younger sister, and then it came back to me. That's what happened. Partition was, I keep looking at, these pictures of refugees, and you say, what the hell is going on in this world? You know what? And then I suddenly sometimes remind myself, I was a refugee. I spent time. Then I knew that we came as refugees to Amritsar, and then my father went back because he was a doctor, and they needed doctors in Lahore. And then I knew we came to Delhi, but I also knew that initially we stayed in camps, refugee camps. I had no idea. Then I saw this series called Jubilee, and for the first time I said, that's what my parents were describing, because I had no idea what it looked like. And it's very easy to forget that you're a refugee. So when people say refugees, I say, Shekhar, you were one. You forget.
Obviously, you were a child. You don't have any memories of the partition, right?
Yeah, no, but you start like that. Your life started like that. My parents' life started like that. Lost everything and rebuilt it.
And you never went back ever to
Lahore?
Yeah, to Lahore.
I went to do all the music for Bandit Queen was done in Lahore with Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan.
And
when I went there, it was funny. It's like I hadn't explained that And I went into a big studio in Lahore, music studios. Now, of course, they're not. But remember, here also we had big, huge studios that famous and everywhere. But they still had them. And as soon as I walked in, they started to play. The 20, 30-piece orchestra was there. And they started to play themes from Mr. India, from Masoom. It was like a hugely emotional moment for me, you know. And then I had to take Khan Sahab away. दूसरे पर लिखा, सर ऐसा म्यूजिक नहीं है फिल्म में. शेखर कपूर आया तो बॉलीवुड फिल्म बना रहा होगा ना. नहीं ऐसा नहीं है सर, ये नहीं फिल्म. Then I explained.
So has the rebel, has the wild child been able to break free finally? Have you, all those borders that you created and the boundaries that you created in your head, were you able to break the shackles? Today, when you look back, do you think you did good?
Boundaries are breaking किए ना मैंने. I have no boundaries anymore. I mean, the boundaries are instinctual. They exist within us. They've been taught to us. So my life has been the need to break boundaries, to think beyond, and to dream beyond. And dream. Subject. When I left chartered accountancy, I told people I'm coming to India, I'm going to be a movie maker. Arey, come on, Shekhar, come on. Yeah, all my British friends. That's a childlike idea. मैं आ गया. Then when I did Bandit Queen, I decided I'm not going to make a film here. I'm going to go play and compete with the A-team. Hollywood जाकर देखता हूँ how good I am. Am I good enough? Everybody said, are you mad? They'll never accept you in Hollywood. This was benign. So everywhere, somebody needs to tell me you can't do it. Say you can't do it. Then challenge me. So if you don't challenge me, I'll have to challenge myself and say, Shekhar, you can't do it. And then I'll do it. So where are the boundaries? We're still exploring. All of us need to explore. These boundaries are set by what? What's that box of being of reasonableness? That's it, huh? Be reasonable. Be reasonable. Say that to me and I'll get mad. Because what is that box of reasonableness that we put ourselves? I call it the coffin of reasonableness. Let's be unreasonable. Creativity is an unreasonable act. Writing a poem is an unreasonable act. Making a film is an unreasonable act. Falling in love is the most unreasonable act of all. Living life is unreasonable. But that's what attracts us. Fundamentally, that's where we go. That's where we're different from AI. AI cannot look at unreasonableness. It can only look at reason. That's how we're different. That's why we're human. Because we can be unreasonable. We will want to be unreasonable. That's where Rahman can make music. That's why Andrew Lloyd Webber exists. That's why Javed Akhtar exists. That's why I exist. That's why all creative people. Picasso, उसको बोलो भाई reasonable painting बनाओ. कैसे बनाएगा? It has to be unreasonable.
So I hope you continue to being unreasonable and continue to amaze us with your formidable, incredible talent. And thank you for all the movie memories that you've given me. Thank you so much. It's been been a privilege. Thank you so much. So before I let you go, Shekhar, I have a wonderful audience here which wants to ask you questions about your journey and all of that. So quickly.
Can you tell them to be nice to me?
Yeah. Please be nice to him.
Hello, sir. So, as we all know that Mr. India now is regarded as such an iconic film, did you ever anticipate for it to be such a big hit? And how was your experience working with Devi ma'am and Anil Kapoor, sir?
No, of course I didn't know. If I started to think, I don't make a film thinking it's going to be the biggest box office hit and it's going to get. I can't. I can only think of putting that scene. At Mr. India, I had a directing partner. And that partner was an 11-year-old kid that was me. So every time I would take a shot, I would say to the 11-year-old kid saying, well, what do you think? And the 11-year-old kid would say, yeah, I like it. Or the 11-year-old kid would say, yeah, boring ho gaya, buddha ho gaya tu. Literally I would have that conversation constantly with that 11-year-old kid. And that's how I met Mr. India. That 11-year-old kid made the film. Me just saying, okay, all right, So, how now if you're making a film for an 11-year-old, I made the film for kids. How would I know that it becomes this big iconic film? Because I realize now there was a joyousness and a childishness within the film that seeped in that apparently people still love. And maybe they're not making joyous and childish films anymore. Maybe that's why it is. I don't know. Maybe Devi will never have another one like that. She made the film for me. It was just a joy. I used to get up in the morning and say, yeah, that's Devi ke saath kaam karna. It was like such an attraction to work with somebody that gave you far, far, far beyond that what you thought might give. Just surprise you every time, surprise you, surprise you. Anil, as soon as he got past the mirror of looking at himself, he was fantastic. Right? He was great.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hello, sir. Do you think money factor is affecting the creativity of Indian films?
Money factor, of course. It's a medium that is expensive and it's getting unreasonably expensive. Do you know how much I made Masoom for? 11 lakhs. Now I'm saying, yeah, if I made the same film now, they're saying, oh, 20 crores, I'm pagal ho gayi ho kya? What's going on? So has film become expensive or has money lost value? I think money's lost value. It's just the same things cost like 100 times more or something. But it's our job to keep the film as cheap, not cheap, but to control budgets. I'm not an expensive film director. What do people say about me? I can still make a film in 35 days or 40 days. But yes, I think budgets have gone out of control.
You made Masoom in 11 lakhs?
11 lakhs.
Wow.
Right. What's happening is that even in India, I'm amazed at the number of people that come to the sets. I made big films in the West, and I don't have that many people on the set. I actually, if there are more than 6 or 7, I start throwing people out of the set. Suddenly I see 20 people. So that started when labor was cheap. Now it's not, but we haven't got rid of that. So yes, not money, but we need to change and change the way we make films. And I think we need to bring down the budgets of the films because, let's face it, India, if you look at theatrical, we only have 8,000 screens that work properly. How can you run a whole business on 8,000 screens? You know, China has 90,000. So we just, this whole effort, the media, everybody, stars, everybody's constantly talking about them, and it survives on 8,000 screens. When you think about it, it's quite ridiculous. It's a hype. We need more screens. That's why everybody's going to OTT and elsewhere, and your phone, it's another screen. But yeah, we need to understand the business a bit more. But we were talking about AI films. I can make a $300 million film. A kid can make it in $3,000 now with AI. Very soon we'll be able to do that. So it's going to change the game. So let's see where it goes. It's fascinating.
Hi, sir. I'm a big fan of your Bandit Queen movie. I just wanted to know, how did you do your research back then for the film? If you can just tell me the story.
I went there. I spent 4 or 5 months just traveling around there, talking to people. The only thing was that I was not allowed to, because she was still in prison, Pulan Devi, I was not allowed to meet her. But my writer, Mala Singh, she met her. So yeah, I went. I actually lived there for a little while, walked around, understood, talked to the villagers there. Yeah, and it's not just me; it's the writer also. You know, the writer works. They do a lot of research.
Do you have a favorite from what you made?
I've never been able to. I can tell you right now, my best film so far is Bandit Queen.
Yeah.
Better than anything else. And the fear I have is I'll die before I can compete with Bandit Queen.
Thank you, sir. That's it. It's a wrap.